Hi everybody, I've got a lovely compilation for you now of 3 really painterly loose videos. So it's going to really get you loosened up, it's going to let you express with more colour and to do a little bit of laying. So I hope you enjoy them.
Hi everyone, I'm going to have a go at a sunset water scene in quite a painterly way. So I'm going to do a wet in wet background to start with and then come over with lots of dry marks. So it's going to be an interesting one because it'll be a new technique if it works. So I'm going to wet the paper. This is just a little bit of Saunders Waterford, nice cotton paper. It's about 5 by 7 inches. I'm going to wet the sky. This is my round number 10 that I'm using. And I've just got a little Cotman palette that I'm going to use today. I'll talk you through the colours as I go. So this one, the first one is cadmium yellow. So I'm going to bring that in as a base. Then dip straight into some cadmium red. So tonally this is changing as it's coming up. Then I'm going to go straight into some alizarin crimson. I'm going to rinse my brush a little bit there. And then this is cerulean blue. So I'm going to bring cerulean blue. And then a tiny touch of ultramarine blue just towards the top. Got a nice sort of tonal mix and shifting colour as it's coming up. Okay, so I'm just letting that settle a little bit, but I've got a cotton bud here or an earbud, and I want to lift out a little bit of a sun whilst it's still damp. I'm going to use a little bit of kitchen towel over there so that I get a nice clear sun lifted. With the earbud itself, it can be too soft, so you can see that I've just lifted out that little bit there. So it's still nicely damp, and normally I would now be working into this sky whilst it was nicely damp, but this technique means that I'm doing things slightly differently, and it's really nice to push yourself to try these different techniques. So I'm going to leave a tiny gap of about 2 millimeters between the top and bottom, and we can get a bit of a base in on the bottom as well. That dry line just means that they're not going to blend together. I don't want them to blend together. I'm going to start again with the cadmium yellow. Nice horizontal stroke. And that can come through all the land either side of this water. It's a very simple sort of semi-abstract scene. I've rinsed my brush off. I'm picking up a little bit of the cadmium red, bringing that through. This is all with my round number 10. Rinse my brush off again, picking up some of the cerulean blue. A little bit of the ultramarine. I'm basically reflecting the colours from the sky down below in the water. This is a little bit of the alizarin crimson. Some of that can slightly come through the blue. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's thoroughly dry now. And this is now where this painterly technique comes in. So I need to make sure that when I'm mixing these colours that they are not too strong. So that's a little bit of the yellow. A little bit of the cadmium red. I'm going to make that yellow very slightly stronger. I want these to be fairly consistent. This is the alizarin crimson. I'm going to shift a little bit this way. You don't normally have to see this bit of my palette. This is a cerulean blue. I'm just using my round number 6. This goes against everything I've ever been taught in watercolour, what I'm about to do. But that's good, we're breaking the rules. And then this is the ultramarine. So it's those same 5 colours that I've used. I also need a little bit of purple, which will be the ultramarine and the alizarin crimson. So I've got a little bit of a purple there as well. So here we go. I'm going to stick with my round number 6 and we're going to come on fairly loose. We're going to start with the sky. Dabbing on. Try not to settle too far, too quickly. So don't keep going over the same section. You want to work and move on. That's a little bit of the cadmium red coming in. Cadmium red. Then into the alizarin. Tonally, you need to keep them very similar. These paints need to be quite wet. And you want loose strokes. Take a little bit of the dab of that back in. So I'm dabbing into the colours, but I'm just letting them do the thing. I'm not over-analysing, I'm not over-stroking, which is very hard. Take a few dabs of the cerulean blue on. Then we're going to get nice and dark up here. So this is the ultramarine blue. Blending through nice and loosely. I'm going to take a little bit of the purple in, so that's giving an additional dark just at the top. Okay, dry that one off. Okay, that's nicely dry. I'm going to do very similar now on the water. So this is the cadmium yellow, horizontal strokes with my round number 6, that same colour that we mixed up. Then a bit of the cadmium red. Just bring a little bit more of that in there. Random dabbing. A little bit of the cerulean blue. A little bit of the ultramarine blue. A little bit of this purple. It's again reflecting the colours from the sky. I'm also going to come down the edge of the bank with the purple. I need a little bit more yellow just in at the background here. Just got that little bit in. What colour have I not used the alizarin? We use a little bit of that within here as well. And then a little bit more of the purple. It's definitely a very interesting technique. It is making me nervous. But it appears to be sort of working. Okay, I'm going to dry that off. Okay, so that's dried again. I've actually swapped up to around number 10 because I don't think I'm working quick enough. So this is the cadmium yellow. I'm going to take in a little bit of the cadmium red. So I've got a mix now, and I think this will mean that I work quicker because I've got a bigger brush. So I'm going to start to take in a few marks. So I'm varying the pressure of my brush, and this is like another layer coming over, and it is much easier because it's quicker. This is the alizarin crimson. Paint some of that on. Just keep varying, my advice is just keep varying the pressure of your brush and don't think about it too much. If you think about it too much, you've had it. Okay, this is my purple again, which was alizarin crimson and ultramarine. Rinse that brush out. Just take a little bit more of the ultramarine in. With a style like this, you actually want it to create those hard edges, to create those watermarks. I'm going to come back into here with a little bit more of the orange. It's that same orange. A few horizontal strokes. A little bit more of the blue. Build that up, and a little bit of the purple. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so this is coming together. I'm still reserving judgment of whether it's coming together nicely or not. So here I'm going to put some trees in here, so I want a little bit of a reflection of those trees, and I'm just using some purple. And I'm going to have a few grasses, so I'm going to have a little bit of a reflection there of some grasses, just to hold on basically to hold the surface of the water together, really. And just take a little bit more dark. This is just that purple on that bank. And hopefully that will hold that together quite nicely. An odd sort of stroke this way wouldn't go amiss either. Just to hold that together as the surface of the water. When you go further back, you want a different colour, so if I just use a little bit There are a few little extra marks in the sky here. Okay, so I need a bit of a dark colour now to do a few background trees. So this is ultramarine, a little bit of burnt umber, and then this one's a bit of viridian, so it's just giving it a hint of green. I'm just going to come in, just do some background trees, nice and loose. Just either side. This is with my round number 6. It's coming pretty much on to dry. Nice dark colour, so it's silhouetted. You can see where the water's disappearing on the horizon. If I get a rigger and use some of this green, I'm just going to twizzle around and get a few branches on these trees. Okay, I'm going to dry that off before I carry on. Okay, so I'm going to come into each of these sides now. It's a little bit of water going on. Little bit of cadmium yellow, so I'm using my round number 10, keeping it nice and quick. If I was going to practice this again, I would definitely go with a bigger brush, because I think a bigger brush means you're looser and working quicker. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of ultramarine. Just want strokes, but I'm leaving gaps. And then this is that mix that I've used in the background, which is ultramarine, burnt umber and a bit of viridian. So there's a hint of green there, and I just basically want to get the line of the land. So a few nice strokes. The cadmium yellow should make it all look a little bit greener, which is what you want. I'm going to go to a rigger. Just going to stroke through some cadmium yellow, start to create that grassiness. Take a little bit more of the cadmium yellow towards the back as well. You want that nice light and dark contrast, so that nice yellow at the back is going to work really nicely. And this nice dark mix again. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to put more ultramarine and burnt umber in, so I can start to stroke through. And create a few grasses. This edge nice and dark. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, and I'm going to pop in a couple of trees here. So this is with that same mix, which is ultramarine and burnt umber. I want this to be nice and dark. I'm going to use my rigger. In fact, I'm going to twizzle round to make it easier. Paint downwards. Just get a nice selection of branches in on these trees. That's working really nicely. Just make that a little bit darker. Pick up around number 6. Just bring a little bit of the cadmium red in. Got a little bit of shadow. It's just layering up the colour. Be a bit careful around these tree trunks, I don't want them to run. I'll dry that one off. Okay, so I think there's just a few sort of final tweaks now. It's a very interesting experiment suggested by a lady on Facebook, and I took the challenge. I'm going to add a little bit more into the water here. A little bit just texture in the foreground on the water, really, because I want a little bit more of a reflection there. And I'm going to get my rigger. This very dark colour again. Just see if I can get some additional grasses just into this foreground area. Just all about giving everything a little bit more depth there. So back by popular demand, another painterly style one. So this time I'm on a bit of Saunders. It's 5 by 6 inches wide. So still, again, not very big. This is a new style to me, so I'm gonna take my time. And in the same way I teach, I'm going to do it small to start with before I start going bigger. Okay, so I've got a bit of a cliff face in here. I'll pop a little bit of a promenade. I'm going to do a little bit of water. This is inspired by a photo from Brunswick Bay, but I'm just going to do less in there. So I've got a bit of water, so I've got a bit of a seascape. And then this is a bit of like a walkway promenade. And I'm going to pop a little cottage in. So I've got one vertical, two verticals. Horizontally I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do that at the bottom, slant that down. I'll pop a little doorway in. These are nice and little window, little window, window up here, and a window up there. Roof, I'm going to slant it either side, and then this line I'm going to taper it downwards there. So that one's horizontal, that one goes up to the left, down to the right. So that's just going to give you a little bit of a sense of perspective. Then I'm going to pop a tree in here at the side. There's lots of other houses at Runswick Bay that I'm just going to concentrate on that one within this scene. So it's nice and clear for you. I'm using my Cotman palette. I'll talk you through the colours as I go. I've got a round number 10, a round number 6 and a rigger. So I'm going to start by getting a wash onto the sky. So a little bit of water in round number 10. Going to come into the cadmium yellow. I'll paint that towards the bottom. Leave a little bit of a gap. Paint a bit more in here. Rinse my brush out. This is alizarin crimson I'm dabbing into now, towards the top. This painterly style you end up with dry over the top as well. I'll just strengthen the top section up, and then I'm going to bring some of that alizarin crimson through the yellow. A little bit down here as well. I've got odd little bits of dry, I'm going to leave those in. It lends to the painterly style. I'm going to swap down to my number 6. And I have got cerulean blue here. Cobalt blue would do, ultramarine blue would do. I'm just going to pop a little bit in. Number 6 just means I'm a little bit more in control and keeping it within that alizarin crimson section. We're going to get some nice bits of purple happening there. Back to my round number 10. Coming back into the cadmium yellow, and this is on to dry. I'm going to do this promenade section. So I'm just concentrating really on getting a base in. So that's the cadmium yellow. I'm going to use the alizarin again, just dabbed into that. I've not rinsed my brush in between. So I'll get a little bit of warmth in there. If you've got raw sienna, this would be the perfect colour. Raw sienna or yellow ochre. I'm managing with what I've got, so it's not always as easy. But then I think everybody doesn't have certain colours. This is ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm making a darker grey. Just going to pop a little bit of that towards the bottom of there. I'm going to come into the water. So I'm going to come on to dry because it's lending well to this painterly style. This is the cerulean blue and I want to leave dry bits. So with my round number 10, I'm sweeping through leaving few dry bits. Doesn't matter if they connect together a little bit, it's absolutely fine. There's no rules with this painterly style I've worked out. Okay, so this is that grey again. I'm just mixing up a little bit more. Just take a little bit in towards the front. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I think the secret to this technique is to work quickly, to work loosely, and to keep drying it. So I'm now going to come into the hillside at the back. So I'm using my round number 10. This is a cadmium yellow coming on. And I'm leaving odd gaps. And then I'm going to come into some sap green. Dabbing in. Don't mind leaving a little bit of white. I'm going to dab into this tree at the side of the house as well. I'm going to take in a little bit of cadmium red. So this is going to make the green much more natural as we build up some layers. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the burnt umber. If you haven't got any of these colours, then I just want you to choose something that's closest to it. It honestly doesn't matter. You want a nice dark edge against the side of that house there. That's going to help. Just random dabbing. Random is quite hard to do, but it does work. I'm going to take a tiny bit of the cerulean blue in as well. I did not rinse my brush in between there. The bigger the brush you can use, the better when you're doing this. If I take some green, so this one is Viridium, and take a little bit of brown into it, I'm going to get a much more natural green. Then we're going to come into that whilst it's still damp on this tree at the side. There we go, got a nice tree there. I'm just going to dab in a few bits here as well. Gives a nice sense of distance. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I've got a little bit of this grey left here, which is the ultramarine and the burnt umber, but any sort of blue and like cobalt blue and burnt sienna make a great grey. Payne's grey would work. I'm using my round number 6, and I'm just popping in those windows and the door. I'm also going to pop in the roof. So this is all on to dry. Make sure you get a really nice edge on that roof. If I just dab into a little bit of the cadmium red, I'm just going to warm up the roof a little bit. There we go. Just a nice contrast. I've also got a little bit of a step here. So that's a bit of the cadmium yellow with a little bit of the cadmium red over there as well. Right, I'm going to come back into that dark green mix. So that was Viridian and burnt umber. I'm going to start to dab a bit more painterly on the tree. So this is with my round number 6, random dabbing. We're going to start to get lots of nice loose marks in here now. So I've got that on, and then I'm going to come into a little bit of the ultramarine blue on its own and just dab some of that through. It's a really interesting effect because it makes everything nice and loose. I'm going to come number 6. I'm going to pop some of the cadmium yellow back onto the promenade bit. Horizontally lines, but leaving gaps. I'm leaving dry marks. Then a little bit of the alizarin crimson coming in here. So I'm just dabbing into the colours. My brush has got a little bit of water on. And I'm going to come back into that grey so I get a nice dark edge at the bottom here. There's lots of really interesting marks. Rinse my brush out. As a rule, I'm basically coming back on with the same colour over the top. So this is the cerulean blue. I'm moving it through the water. So I'm starting to get some ripply bits. I'm avoiding all those white patches. I want to keep those white patches. Keep dipping back in the water because I want this to be quite fluid. Should be really nice and expressive. Well, these little runs, I want you to leave them. I want you to work with them. I'm going to take a little bit of the alizarin crimson again. Bring that through. So this is hitting some of the wet cerulean, some of the drier areas. If anything looks a little bit too bold, just wet it in. So I'm just wetting that bit in a little bit. To be too bold there. It's really effective. I'm going to dab into some of the yellow too. I'm just reflecting some of the colours basically from the sky within here. And see, you can have a little bit of green, so it works quite nicely. So I'm just taking some of the cadmium yellow through at the front as well. This painterly effect is quite rainbow. I quite like it. The beauty of it is to just get the dark right. If you've got a bit of the dark in, it just works. So I'm going to take some of this. This is the burnt umber and ultramarine that's making my dark. But if you've got a dark, then you can just use that. I'm just going to bring some of that towards the bottom of this promenade. You can see now, look, it's just starting to get that lovely glow. And that's purely from that dark. What's nice about this is when you're working small is you're taking the pressure off a little bit. I'm going to pop a little bit more dark in there. I'm just going to come back over the roof. So I want that to be nice and dark. I'm leaving the building white so you've got that really lovely glow. Okay, I'm swapping now to my round number 10. I'm going to come back into the sky. So this is a little bit of the cadmium yellow coming through. Keeping quite horizontal strokes, leaving gaps. I want this to look really loose. Not rinsing my brush, but I've dabbed into a bit more water. And then this is the alizarin crimson coming back in. I'm going to bring some of that through. The quicker that you can do this, remember you're leaving gaps, leaving dry gaps, the better. You don't want it to dry whilst you're doing this on dry. Hence why I've swapped back to a bigger brush to do this section. Rinse my brush out. I'm going to pick up some of the cerulean blue. Just bring that in towards the top. I'm actually going to dip into the ultramarine blue a little bit so I'll get it nice and dark at that top section. It's looking really pretty now. So this is a little bit more of the cadmium yellow with my round number 10. Just dabbing into this tree area so that's getting a much more glow to it, much more of a glow. I'm going to actually bring some of the cadmium red in. With the Cotman palette, these are semi-transparent, so you don't tend to get mud. So you would need to be careful if you were using different cadmium red. I'd use alizarin instead. In fact, I'm going to dab a bit of the alizarin in. Using the same sorts of colours always creates a really nice synergy. And then I'm just going to come into a little bit of the sap green because I've used that previously and I've tried to use the same colours. Just bring that along. There we go. I'm just going to dry that off and we'll make any final tweaks. Okay, so that's nicely dry. A couple of bits that I want to do. So I'm going to come down this side of the house with a tiny bit of the watery grey. So I want that side of the house to be in shadow. And I'm just going to take a bit of that grey just underneath there as well, and possibly a bit down there, just so it's given a better shadow on the house. This is my round number 6 that I'm using. I'm going to dip into some of the cadmium red. I want to bold this up a little bit. So this is just some strokes along the front, just to really warm that section up. I'm going to touch into the alizarin crimson. It's a really sort of loose, liberating style actually. I'm going to come back into the alizarin crimson, take a little bit more into the water here. So this is all on to dry, just creating some really nice strokes. Alizarin crimson up here as well. Remember, we want this to be painterly. We want this to have loose marks and have atmosphere. So I'm varying the pressure of the brush, dipping into water sometimes, not into others, so I'm getting a variety of tone in here. And dip back into the cadmium yellow, just taking a little bit more there. Just warm through in there as well. And then a little bit more. This is one of those things you could tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to take a little bit more of the cerulean blue in, just on the front of the water. I want the water to stand forward, so all of this is bolding that up. And those lovely sort of white highlights holding together really nicely. Dab back into the cadmium yellow. Just going to take a little bit more on here. And a little bit of the cadmium red. Just looks a little bit flat. I don't want it to look flat. I want it to have a few marks. With the red and green, it's a complementary colour, so it's muting it back. But it's just giving me a little bit more texture in there, which is what I want. Okay, I'll take the tape off. And there we go, so it's all finished. It's again a really expressive, loose, painterly style. It proved really popular in the last video. I'm sure that this one will prove just as popular, and I think it started a new sort of loose, painterly style series for me. So if you've enjoyed today, please do like, subscribe, give me a comment. Let me know what you want me to do in a painterly style. I shall pop a playlist here and another video here for you, and I shall see you next time. Bye. Hi everyone, so I'm back with my beginners painterly loose fun series. I have got my Cotman palette. For the eagle-eyed of you, you will notice that some of the colours have been replaced. So I have checked the link that I provide to the one on Amazon, and I have added some of the colours that I have lost over the years. This palette is ancient, so I have replaced some of the colours, and my colours are pretty much the same now, bar Payne's Grey, which I haven't got, to the palette that is available on Amazon via the link in the description. I've got a little bit of Saunders Waterford. It's cotton paper, about 7 by 5 inches. For this you could use any sort of wood pulp paper as well. So today we're going to do a little bit of a mountain cum meadow scene, and it's going to be lots of nice loose and painterly marks again. So I am popping some water on with a round number 10. This series so far has been immensely popular. There's only 2 in there. This is going to be the 3rd. And I think I will be carrying on because it is just doing really well. And it's quite fun to do. The first one was very stressful, but now it's just quite relaxed and fun. So I'm wetting the whole of the paper with my round number 10. I'm also going to be using a round number 6 and a rigger today. So they're good and ready for me. Okay. So I will talk you through the colours as I go. So I'm dipping a loaded water brush into cadmium yellow. So that's my first colour. I'm going to come through and we're going to get a really nice base onto this now. The great thing about this is there really isn't any pressure because it is so loose and painterly. It's lovely. I'm going to use a little bit of, this is cadmium red hue. I'm just going to take a little bit of that up in, so I'm going to gain a little bit of warmth up here. I'm going to come into some permanent rose. This hasn't set yet, so this has come out of a tube into a redundant pan holder. So it will eventually set and become part of the pan set. Permanent rose is one of my go-to favourite colours. If you watch a lot of my videos, you will know that I like permanent rose. I'm bringing that in. Some nice strokes across. I'm going to get a really nice base of different colours. This is a little bit of cerulean blue. So this now is coming through. Rinse my brush out. And then I'm coming into lemon yellow. So I really want to vary the yellow from the sky and give this much more vibrancy at the bottom. Remember, this is just a base. We're going to work into it with lots of painterly loose strokes. So I'm just blending through the cerulean blue. I'm going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue. Just bring that within here as well. This here is alizarin crimson. I just want to pick a little bit of that up. Just darken here. Then I have got a 5p piece and some tissue, basically something small and round. And I'm putting that around the 5p piece, and I'm going to just dab that on, hold it on. You can sort of give it a twist, it doesn't move, and then you will get a sun appear. Okay, so I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's lovely and dry now. So the rules are, there are no rules. I'm just going to keep going on with lots of loose wet paint. So what I do say is I try to keep to similar colours, especially in the sky. So this is a little bit of the cadmium yellow going back in, and I want lots of loose strokes. So I'm just going to take a few horizontal strokes. In fact, I might just take a little bit through the sun, because that would work really lovely. That same sort of similar tone tends to work quite nicely. I'm going to take a little bit of the cadmium orange in, not orange, cadmium red. It's quite going to make quite an orange here anyway. And then a little bit more within there. So you've got bits that are dry, bits that are working within the wet watercolour as well. I'm going to take a little bit of the alizarin crimson just up at the top as well. Getting a really nice blend here. Just rinse that brush off. I'm going to pick up a little bit more alizarin crimson. I just don't want it to be red. I don't want any of that cadmium red in. I'm just going to blend this through a little bit just towards the bottom here. So that's got a nice painterly effect happening in the sky. I'm going to come back down towards the bottom area now. So this is the lemon yellow. We're going to start to bring a little bit more of that in. Just dabbing across, stroking across, just thinking sort of a meadow, a bit of a hill coming down from mountains basically. With that yellow still on the brush, I'm going to dip into the cerulean blue and then just start to blend a little bit of that through. I want to leave little dashes of dry. So I don't want to keep going over and over this, because then I'm going to pick up the paint from underneath, and I'm also then going to not have those little dry patches. Those little dry patches are what work wonderfully. I'm just going to start to put a little bit of a hillside in there as well. Again, leaving gaps, dry patches. If I come down to a number 6 now, I'm going to pick up some of this Viridian and take it into this, what looks like an orange bit that I've not cleaned. So I've got that nice Viridian. Then I'm going to take some burnt umber into it. Basically want a nice dark green. I'm going to pop some strong trees in here. Remember, this is all fun and experimental. So we're going to have just, it's like vertical dabbing, but you do wider at the bottom. We're going to start to get a few conifer trees in. Going to have some in the distance here. Remember, those odd dry patches, you're going to leave them. This is what's making all this work. I'll have a few here. A bit of a bigger one here. I'm going to rinse my brush off, dip into some ultramarine blue. Just dab some of that through. especially this foreground one. I want that to stand out a little bit more. You can also take, so I have now got a little bit of ivory black. I don't tend to use a lot of black. So I tend to find it's a little bit too strong, but then what I will do is I'll warm it up with something. So I'll take a little bit of alizarin in as well. This is probably why it survived in my previous palette, but obviously I'm recommending this palette to you guys, so I want to have the same colours to show you. So I just warm it up a little bit. Black can zap the colour, so I've just warmed it up with a little bit of a dab of alizarin crimson in there. You can always take another dab of the alizarin crimson in. Basically I'm getting a nice foreground edge here. I might take a little bit into this one down here. Okay, so I've rinsed that brush off. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of the rose. And I'm going to start to bring in some distant mountains. So we're going to keep them similar colour to the sky. So this is going to be the top of the first distant mountain. Sort of following the line of the land, bringing it down. It's really nice because tonally it's very similar to that in the sky. Just going to soften that in just there with a dab of water. Right, I'm going to dry this off, but actually before I dry off I would quite like a few dabs. So I've just dabbed into the rose, a few dabs of maybe flowers, so I'm gonna just take a few flowers in here. I like that I can just make these up and it's really fun. Ooh, there's a rose. And I hope you enjoy them as well. They seem very popular. If you go too far, so just dab your brush off so it's nearly dry, and then I just want you to blend. Anything with a nearly dry brush will blend very nicely. If the brush is wet, it'll create a watermark, so you just want to blend. In fact, I'm going to take a little bit more cerulean in there. We'll make it a bit more painterly. And just come through with a little bit of the cerulean blue. It's really fun doing this. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm really liking the effect already. I'm going to come in and start to create another layer of distant mountains here. So this one, I'm going to be a little bit more purple. I'm just working down the colours that are here. So if I take a tiny bit of the rose or the alizarin crimson into the cerulean blue, and I'm just going to blend that through on the paper. Blending on the paper gives much more vibrancy than blending in the palette. I've got a video in my techniques playlist that shows you the differences of blending in paper and blending on the palette, and why I prefer blending on the paper. Again, with a wet brush, I'm just going to wet that bit towards the bottom because I'm going to do another one. We're giving it a sense of distance here. I'm going to do another one there. So with the painterly effect, we like to come in again. So I'm going to come in again. I'm going to get a few more brush strokes. So this is the cadmium red. I'm just going to get a little bit more water. So I'm down to my round number 6 now. I'm going to dip into the rose as well. I want some real nice vibrancy at the top. Remember, those little dry bits will work really nicely. You want them to be there. A combination of hard and soft edges. So this is a little bit of the cadmium yellow going in now. just random strokes, mixing it up a little bit. I'll pick up a little bit of the rose. Rose or alizarin crimson would work for these. You just want something a little bit with a pinky tone. Just it's fun, you can just play around. I'm going to even pick up a little bit of the cerulean blue. Just blend that through. So I'm just taking an extra little bit of water on there. So that sky's looking lovely now. Right, back into the lemon yellow. We're just going to bold this up a little bit towards the front. So this sort of bottom few centimetres, we're just going to bold that up a little bit with a bit more of the yellow. Nice and vibrant. So then that dark green, so that was the viridian and the burnt umber. I'm going to come back into that. Just going to build up this tree a little bit more. So I don't want to put the strokes everywhere. In fact, I want to blend a little bit into this yellow. I'd say about 50% of the tree I'm going to come back over so that I get that really nice blend, and it's just giving an extra bit of oomph to these ones just at the front. It's giving a great sense of distance and depth. It's quite hard to do that when you're going bright, so you've got to really think about it, and these extra bits of colour and strokes in this front section give it that depth. Rinse that out, and then I'm going to just touch into the rose again. We'll have a few more flowers appearing. So again, I'm leaving bits of the softness, and some of them I'm taking into the yellow. Can blend some of this through. I'm going to take a little bit more of the yellow in. Just come over some of those sections. So this is a lemon yellow, so it's a tonally different yellow. I'm going to take a dab of the cerulean blue in. I want to try and get a little bit more texture and variety just towards this front section here. So this is why I'm doing a few extra dabs. That's cerulean blue as well, so it's got a really nice feel. It's got a good evening feel now. Okay, I'm just going to dry it off to do this final stage. Okay, so that's nicely dry now, and I want to get an extra mountain in here. So I'm coming darker. Every time I'm coming in, I'm coming darker. And tonally, I'm getting cooler as well. So I've sort of mirrored the tones from the sky, which is the only real rule that I've had with this when I've been doing this painterly, is that wherever the wet in wet wash, I try to mirror some of that through. I'm following the line of the land. I'm leaving odd dry bits, so that's working quite nicely. I'm just going to take a little bit of the burnt umber in, just because I want some areas to be a bit darker. So I'm coming right the way down to the bottom edge of that mountain, So I want that darkness down here. In fact, I'm going to take a tiny bit of that ivory black, Payne's grey. If it looks a bit too black, you'll know when you put it on because it dulls the colour. You want a bit of brown in it, a bit of red in it. Payne's grey is naturally quite blue, so it tends to not be as bad at dulling the colour. But that contrast just sets that distance. You can see you've got that line and then the depth is there. I'm going to rinse my brush off and just pick into a little bit of the cerulean blue. Just bring a little bit of that through. Just here as well. It's a really, really fun process because there's no way that I would recreate this again, and there's no way that you'll recreate it exactly, but what it's learning you and teaching you really is just to have fun with the paint and to play with all your colours. I mean, you've got the colour combinations here that you've started very warm and that have worked very cool, and that just works to give additional vibrancy. So I'll dry this off and then I'll take the tape off so you can see the final result. So there we go, it's all finished with the tape off. It's really vibrant, really pretty, really fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share. Comment as well, let me know what other subjects you want to do painterly. I think this is going to be a popular series that stays anyway. I'll pop another playlist here and another link to a video here, and I shall see you next time.
Thanks for watching. I hope you found them useful. Please do like, subscribe and share, and I shall see you next time. Bye.